Far from Earth, a brutal war burned across the stars. The alien empire known as the Kryll Dominion was feared for one reason. They did not follow rules. Where other races signed treaties and respected limits, the Kryll saw weakness. They believed only in victory. Around a dead, broken planet, the remains of a great battle drifted in silence. Wrecked ships, shattered armor, and pieces of metal floated slowly in the cold darkness. The fight had ended, but the cost was heavy. Human soldiers were still alive out there. They lay inside damaged ships and broken escape pods. Some were badly injured. Some could barely breathe. Their weapons were gone. Their strength was fading. But they were alive, and they were waiting for rescue. A small human medical ship moved carefully through the debris field. Its engines were weak, its shields almost gone. It was not built for war. It was built to save lives. Inside, medics worked fast. Their faces were tired, but their hands did not stop. Every second mattered. The captain of the medical ship looked at the stars ahead. Kryll warships were still nearby, large, silent, watching. He took a deep breath and gave the order. Send the signal. A message was transmitted across open space. Ceasefire. We are recovering wounded. We are not a threat. The signal repeated again and again. For a moment, nothing happened. The battlefield was quiet. Even the drifting metal seemed to slow. The human medics waited. The wounded soldiers listened, hoping the enemy would respect this one simple rule, because even in war, there were limits. Then, a sudden flash of light broke the silence. A Kryll warship fired. At first, the humans thought it was a mistake, but then another shot came, and another. The attacks were not aimed at weapons, not at active ships. They were aimed at the escape pods, at the broken ships, at the wounded. A human pod exploded into fire and dust. Inside, injured soldiers had no chance to escape. Another medical shuttle tried to move, but a beam of energy cut through it like paper. It burned in seconds. Panic spread across the human channels. This is a medical unit. We are unarmed. No answer. Only more fire. The Kryll ships moved closer, cold, silent, without hesitation. They did not stop. They did not warn. They simply erased every weak signal they found. Inside one drifting piece of debris, a small human drone floated quietly. It was damaged, almost dead. One of its sensors flickered, but it was still working. It recorded everything, every shot, every explosion, every moment where mercy could have existed but did not. The drone watched as a wounded human soldier tried to crawl out of a broken pod. He could not stand. He could barely move. For a second, he looked up at the stars. Then a blast of energy struck him, and he was gone. The drone saved the data. Time passed. The battlefield grew silent again. No human signals remained. No movement. No survivors. The Kryll ship slowly turned away. Their mission was done. They left behind only dust and silence. The small drone drifted alone. Its power was almost gone, but it had one last task. It gathered all its remaining energy and sent a single transmission. A weak signal, but clear enough. Across the vast distance of space, the message traveled. Back to Earth. Back to home. They killed the wounded. No survivors. Then the drone shut down. Far away, on Earth, deep inside a secure command center, a signal was received. At first, it looked like noise. Broken data. Nothing important. But the system flagged it. Human operators began to decode the message. Slowly, the truth appeared on their screens. The room grew quiet. No one spoke. They watched the recording. They saw the helpless. They saw the attack. They saw the moment the line was crossed. A young officer stepped back, his face pale. They fired on the wounded, he said softly. No one answered. At the center of the room, a senior commander stood still. His eyes did not leave the screen. His hands were behind his back, tight and unmoving. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then he gave one order. Confirm it. The data was checked again and again. There was no mistake. The message was real. The crime was real. The commander closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, something had changed. Send this to all command levels, he said. His voice was calm, too calm. And prepare for response. Around the room, people moved quickly. Orders were sent. Systems activated. Hidden protocols began to wake. Across Earth, across human space, something shifted. Not loud, not fast, but deep and final. Back in the command center, the recording played one more time. The last image froze on the screen. A battlefield of the wounded, and fire falling from the sky. The commander looked at it and spoke one last time. They didn't just attack us, he said quietly. They chose this. And in that moment, everything changed. The message spread across human space in complete silence. There were no public broadcasts, no speeches, no anger shown to the galaxy. But inside every human system, something began to move. On Earth, the highest command gathered in a secure chamber deep beneath the surface. The room was dark, lit only by floating screens. The same recording played again and again. No one spoke for a long time. They did not need to. Everyone in the room understood what it meant. The Krill had not just attacked human forces. They had broken the oldest rule of war. Do not harm the wounded. A gray-haired officer finally stepped forward. His voice was low. If we answer like before, they will never learn. Another voice replied, colder. If we answer like this, the whole galaxy will learn. Silence returned. Then the commander gave the order. Activate protocol, Black Mercy. For a moment, even the systems seemed to pause. That protocol was not part of normal war plans. It was not discussed. It was not shown to allies. It was hidden, because it was not meant to be used. But now, it was awake. Across human space, secure signals traveled faster than light. They reached hidden stations, deep space shipyards, and forgotten outposts. One by one, systems came online. In the dark side of a distant moon, a massive structure powered up. Layers of metal shifted as something inside slowly moved. Lights turned on after years of darkness. A ship, no markings, no name, only purpose. Elsewhere, beneath the oceans of a distant colony, another fleet began to rise. Giant shapes moved through black water, heading toward launch tunnels. These were not patrol ships. These were not peacekeepers. These were weapons. On a quiet station near the edge of human space, a group of soldiers received their orders. They stood in a long hall, armored and ready. Their commander walked in, his face hard. You have all seen the recording, he said. No one moved. You know what they did. A soldier spoke softly, almost to himself. They killed the wounded. The commander nodded. Yes, and now, we respond. He paused, looking at each of them. This is not a mission of defense. This is not a mission of rescue. This is a mission of consequence. The soldiers understood. No one asked questions. No one needed to. Far away in Krill territory, life continued as normal. Their fleets moved between systems. Their commanders spoke with pride. To them, the battle was over. The humans were weak. They believed fear would keep humanity quiet. They were wrong. In the empty space between stars, something began to appear. At first, it was nothing. Then, a distortion. Like space itself was bending. Without warning, a massive human warship emerged from nothing. Its surface was dark, almost invisible against the void. No lights, no signals. It did not announce itself. It did not send warnings. It simply existed. Then more ships followed, silent, cold, precise. They did not form large fleets like before. They moved in small groups, each one heading to a different target. Every movement was planned. Every second was exact. Back on Earth, the command center watched it all. A young officer looked at the screen, uneasy. Sir, should we send a warning to the Krill? The commander did not turn. No, but protocol usually requires. This is not usual. The officer went quiet. The commander finally spoke again. They were given a warning, he said calmly. They ignored it. On the main screen, the first target appeared. A Krill outpost. Small, weak, unprepared. A human ship moved into position. No communication was sent. No delay. A single beam of light fired. The station vanished. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. The room stayed silent. Another officer whispered, Target 1, eliminated. The commander nodded once. Continue. Across Krill space, more strikes followed. Fast, clean, silent. Outposts disappeared. Patrol ships were destroyed before they could react. Communication lines began to fail. Confusion spread quickly. Krill commanders sent messages to each other. What is happening? Where are the humans? Why are there no signals? But there were no answers. Because humans were not fighting like before. They were not showing themselves. They were not giving time. They were simply removing targets. Back in the command center, the recording played once more in a small corner of the screen. A reminder. A reason. The young officer looked at it, then back at the battle reports. His voice was quiet. This is only the beginning, isn't it? The commander finally turned, his eyes cold and steady. Yes. He looked at the growing list of destroyed targets. They wanted a war without rules. He paused. Now they have one. And far across the stars, the real storm had just begun. The attacks did not stop. They grew. Across Krill space, alarms began to sound in system after system. Stations went dark without warning. Patrol fleets vanished mid-transmission. Entire defense grids failed in seconds. No one could see the enemy. No one could predict the next strike. The Krull Dominion, once proud and fearless, began to feel something new. Confusion, then fear. In one command center, high above a burning red planet, a Krull war leader watched the reports come in. His sharp eyes moved across the glowing screens. "Another outpost gone," an officer said. "No survivors." The leader's claws tightened. "Show me the attacker." "There is no clear image," the officer replied. "The ships appear, then disappear. That is impossible." Yet it was happening. Again and again, without pattern, without delay. The humans were not fighting like a normal enemy. They were not holding territory. They were not sending messages. They were hunting. Far away, near the edge of a Krill supply route, a convoy of ships moved slowly through space. Large cargo vessels, lightly protected, carrying fuel and weapons. They were safe. Or so they thought. A distortion appeared ahead of them. Before any warning could be sent, 3 dark human ships emerged from nothing. Smooth, silent, deadly. The Krell escort ships reacted fast. Weapons powered up. Shields activated. Too slow. The human ships moved with perfect timing. One strike disabled the lead escort. Another cut through the engines of the second. The third ship fired directly into the center of the convoy. Explosions filled the darkness. The cargo ships broke apart, their supplies burning away into nothing. Within seconds, it was over. The human ships did not stay. They vanished just as quickly as they had come. Back in Krull Command, panic began to rise. "They are targeting our supplies. They are cutting our movement. They are everywhere." The war leader slammed his fist down. "Then find them," he roared. But there was nothing to find, because humans had changed the rules. On the other side of the war, human forces moved with cold precision. Every strike had a purpose. Every target was chosen carefully. Military only. No civilians. No wounded. Even now, they followed the rule the Krill had broken. But their mercy ended there. Inside one human warship, a young soldier watched the battle data scroll across his screen. His hands were steady, but his face showed tension. "Target confirmed," he said. Across from him, his commander nodded. "Execute." The soldier pressed the control. Far away, a Krill weapons station exploded into light. The soldier looked down for a moment. "They didn't even see us," he said quietly. The commander's voice was calm. "They didn't let ours see it either." The room went silent. No one argued. No one questioned. They all remembered the recording. Every human ship carried it. Every soldier had seen it. It was not just data. It was a reminder. Back in Krill space, things were getting worse. Communication lines were breaking. Systems could not connect. Commanders could not give clear orders. The Dominion, once strong and united, was becoming blind. A senior Krill strategist spoke with urgency. "We must open communication with the humans," he said. "This is not war. This is destruction." Another replied, shaken. "We thought they were weak." The strategist looked at the growing list of losses. "We were wrong." A signal was prepared. Broadcast across all channels. "To the human command, we request dialogue. We seek understanding." The message repeated again and again, but no reply came, only silence. Then, another strike. A major fleet base vanished from sensors, gone, just like the others. Back on Earth, the human command center remained calm. The screens were filled with updates, but there was no panic, no rush, only control. The young officer watched the incoming cryo message. "Sir, they are asking to talk." The commander stood still, his eyes on the screen. "Do they understand?" the officer asked. The commander did not answer right away. Instead, he pointed to the recording still playing in the corner, the moment of fire, the helpless, the end. "Did they talk then?" he finally said. The officer lowered his gaze. "No, sir." The commander nodded once. "Then we continue." Outside, across the stars, human ships moved again, silent, precise, unstoppable. The Krill had believed war was about power. They believed rules were weakness. Now they were learning the truth. Rules were the only thing holding something far worse back, and they had destroyed them. In the darkness of space, another human fleet prepared to strike. Their engines glowed softly, hidden from sight. A final check came through. All targets locked. The lead commander gave the order. "Move." The ship slipped forward like shadows. No sound, no warning, only purpose. And as they disappeared into the void, the fear of humanity began to spread across the entire galaxy. The fear did not stay inside Krill space, it spread. Across nearby systems, alien races began to notice the sudden silence coming from the Krill Dominion. Trade routes stopped working. Messages went unanswered. Entire regions went dark. At first, no one understood. Then the rumors began. Human fleets are inside Krill territory. They are destroying everything. They are not negotiating. Fear turned into attention. The galaxy started watching. Hidden probes, long-range sensors, and silent observers focused on the war. They expected chaos, wild destruction, and uncontrolled violence. But what they saw was different. Human attacks were precise, clean, controlled. They did not strike cities. They did not target civilians. They only hit military target spaces, fleets, weapons, and supply lines. It was not madness. It was judgment. In one distant system, a neutral observation station recorded everything. Different alien species stood together watching the data flow in. A tall, thin observer spoke quietly. "This is not revenge." Another replied, his voice tense. "No, this is something else." On the main screen, a new transmission appeared. It came from the humans. The observers leaned forward. The message was simple. No threats, no long speech, just a video file. They played it. The room went silent. It showed the battlefield, the wounded humans, the medical ships, the ceasefire signal, and then the attack. The observers watched as the Krill fired on the helpless, as escape pods were destroyed, as injured soldiers were erased without mercy. When the video ended, no one spoke. The truth was clear. A third observer finally whispered, "They broke the rule," and now everyone understood. Back in Krill territory, the situation was collapsing fast. One of the last major fleet commanders stood inside his warship, surrounded by damaged systems and broken signals. His forces were scattered. His fleets were gone. He looked at the reports, his voice filled with disbelief. "How can they be everywhere at once?" An officer answered weakly, "They are not everywhere. They are only where we are weak." The commander clenched his jaw. "That is impossible." But it was not. The humans had studied them, learned them, and now they were using that knowledge perfectly. Another explosion shook the ship. Lights flickered. Systems failed. "We cannot hold much longer," the officer said. The commander stood still for a moment. Then he gave an order he never thought he would give. "Prepare surrender signal." The room froze. "Surrender?" the officer repeated. The commander's voice was heavy. "This is no longer a battle we can win." Far away, deep in human command, the surrender signal was received. The young officer looked at it carefully. "Sir, Krill Fleet Command is requesting full surrender." The room became quiet again. All eyes turned to the commander. He looked at the message, then at the recording still playing in the corner. The same moment, the same fire, the same choice. "They remember now," the young officer said softly. The commander's face did not change. "Too late," he replied. The officer hesitated. "Sir, if they surrender, protocol suggests this is not about protocol." The words were calm, but final. They ended that when they fired on the wounded. The room understood. Outside, human fleets continued their advance. Another Krill base fell. Another fleet disappeared. The Dominion was breaking. In the last remaining stronghold, the Krill leaders gathered. Their numbers were fewer now. Their confidence was gone. One of them spoke with urgency. "We must show them we understand. Send the recording back to them. Admit our mistake." Another added quickly, "We will follow their rules. We will accept any punishment." Desperation filled the room. The message was sent, broadcast across all human channels. "We surrender. We accept fault. We will never break your rules again." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a single human signal returned. Short, cold, clear. "You already did." Silence followed. Heavy, final. The Krill leaders looked at each other, and for the first time, they truly understood what they had done. Back on the battlefield, a massive human fleet gathered near the final Krill stronghold. Ships of all sizes, dark and powerful, formed a silent wall in space. They did not rush. They did not fire. They simply waited. Inside the lead human ship, the commander stood alone, looking out at the enemy. Behind him, the recording played one last time. He did not turn to watch it. He already knew every second of it. A voice came from behind. "All fleets in position." He nodded slowly. "Open channel." The connection was made. For the first time since the war began, humans spoke directly to the Krill. The commander's voice was steady. You asked for surrender. A weak, Krill voice replied, "Yes, we surrender." A pause followed, long, heavy. Then the human commander spoke again. "War will end." Relief spread across the Krill channel. But it did not last. "You will live," the commander continued. "But you will remember." The channel closed. And in that moment, the war was no longer about destruction. It was about something deeper. A lesson written in silence, fire, and loss. One the entire galaxy would never forget. The silence after the message felt heavier than the war itself. No shots were fired. No explosions followed. For the first time in many cycles, the battlefield stood still. The massive human fleet remained in position, surrounding the last Krill stronghold. Their ships formed a dark wall across space, blocking every escape path. Inside the stronghold, the Krill leaders waited. No one moved. No one spoke. They had expected destruction. They had prepared for the end, but it did not come. Instead, they were left to face something worse. Time. Hours passed. Then more. The humans did nothing. No attack. No communication. Only presence. A constant reminder that they were there, watching. One Krill officer finally broke the silence. "Why are they waiting?" he asked, his voice uneasy. Another replied slowly, "Because they want us to understand." The words felt heavy in the room. For the first time, the Krill were not thinking about victory. They were thinking about their actions, about the battlefield, about the wounded. Back on Earth, the command center remained active but calm. Reports showed no resistance, no movement from the enemy. The young officer looked at the data, confused. "Sir, all Kryl forces have powered down. Weapons offline. Shields minimal." The commander nodded. "They know it's over." The officer hesitated. "Then why don't we finish it?" The commander turned slightly, his eyes steady. "Because this is not about ending them." He paused. "It's about making sure this never happens again." The officer looked down, understanding slowly. Across the galaxy, observers continued to watch. The same question spread from system to system. Why had the humans stopped? Why spare the enemy now? The answer came soon after. Human signals began to broadcast across all known space. Every system, every channel, every race, the same message, the same recording. The moment the Krill fired on the wounded, again and again it played. No edits, no changes, only truth. After the video, a single line followed. This is the line. Nothing more. No threats, no demands, but the meaning was clear. In the observation station, the alien watchers stood in silence as the broadcast reached them. They had already seen the video, but now it was different. Now it was a warning, a rule, a boundary. One observer spoke quietly. "They are teaching the galaxy." Another nodded. "Yes, not with words." Back in the Krill stronghold, the leaders received the same broadcast. They watched their own actions played back to them. Every mistake, every choice. They could not look away. One of them lowered his head. "We did this," he said. No one argued. No one denied it, because there was nothing to deny. Outside, the human fleet slowly began to move, not forward, not to attack, but to withdraw. One by one, the massive warships turned away from the stronghold. Their engines lit up softly as they prepared to leave. Inside the command ship, the young officer watched the movement. "Sir, we are pulling back?" The commander gave a single nod. "Yes, all fleets, yes." The officer looked surprised. "We're just leaving?" The commander looked at the distant stars. "They have already been defeated." He paused. "Not by us." The officer followed his gaze. "But by what they did." The meaning settled in slowly. Across Krill space, the remaining systems powered down their weapons. No one followed the retreating human fleet. No one dared. The war was over, but its impact remained. In the days that followed, the galaxy changed. New agreements were formed. Old rules were rewritten, and one rule stood above all others: do not harm the wounded. Because now, everyone knew what would happen. The Krill Dominion, once feared, became silent. They no longer expanded. They no longer expanded. They no longer attacked without thought. They remembered. Always. Back on Earth, life returned to normal. Ships moved again. Trade resumed. Voices filled the systems once more. But deep inside human command, one thing remained active. Protocol Black Mercy. It was not shut down. It was not forgotten. It waited, just in case. In a quiet room, the young officer stood alone, looking at the final report of the war. He read the numbers, the losses, the cost. Then he looked at the last line. Conflict resolved. Enemy surrendered. But it did not feel like victory. It felt like something else, a lesson, a warning, a line that should never be crossed again. Behind him, the commander entered the room. "It's over," the officer said softly. The commander stood beside him, looking at the report. "For now," he replied. They both knew the truth. Peace was never permanent, but some rules had to be. The officer took a deep breath. "Do you think they'll remember?" The commander looked out at the distant stars. His voice was calm. "They will." He paused, "because we made sure they understood." Far across the galaxy, in systems both near and far, the message continued to spread, not through fear alone, but through truth. A simple, unbreakable truth. Humans are peaceful. Humans are patient. Humans believe in rules. But if those rules are broken, if the helpless are harmed, if the line is crossed, then humanity will rise, not in anger, not in chaos, but in something far more dangerous, cold, silent, and unstoppable.